Hello everyone, bonjour tout le monde, and welcome to EFA186. I know why I'm losing body fat. I know why, and I'm going to get into the data and the research behind it, because I've talked about this on multiple of my EFAs where I love to research and I listen to thousands of hours, probably by now, like thousands of hours by medical professionals or people in the field that knowledge sharing and experience that is backed by data and research, right? And I got educated on sleep, and we all know about sleep and how important sleep is, etc. I've told you about like severe sleep apnea. I was diagnosed with that. I did all those testing with 10,000 wires on you. Don't like it. And I did all that stuff, and they diagnosed me with severe sleep apnea. So I got to know about sleep apnea because you can literally die. Most of the heart attacks that are out there, you think it's a heart attack, it's actually caused by sleep apnea. Sleep apnea, there's a lot of links to it, right? So it's not a good thing at all. And so when I was diagnosed with that, I knew a lot about sleeping, but what was interesting is I didn't do much about it. I didn't do much about it until I did this. I did all the medical equipment, that kind of stuff, could not stand it. They were telling me to take sleeping pills to go with the medical equipment to help me sleep. Think about that for a second, right? So I literally stopped using my sleep apnea machine, right? And I got into this world. That's what I did. I knew this was going to happen by going to this world. And here's that anecdote, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment from now. But I'm the guy that used to stay late at night, okay? My daughter, Maddie's a vampire. She's always roaming at night. That comes from me, right? That comes from me. My wife also like that, but she was more the regimented person on the sleep patterns, right? And I'm going to give her that credit. And I was that guy that my daughters were on me all the time now, like, what's wrong with you? Why are you going to bed so early? I'm not going to bed so early. I'm just maintaining an 8-hour window. So and I've been very, very religious from June 3rd on that, like nonstop, right? 2019 here. That's a commonality that I did. So what I mean by the 8-hour window, if I'm getting up at 6 a.m., I'm in the bed by 10, right? If I'm getting up at 7, I'm in the bed by 11. And before that time period, I try to bring it down. I'll still use a phone. Like people, oh, don't do that. I do the phone, I do all that stuff, I do the screens, etc. But I'm in the bed. I'm in the bed for that 8-hour period. I'm not sleeping that 8-hour period, but I'm downsizing my brain, right? So, and this is why it's important what I did, and I know why I'm losing so much fat. And this is what's interesting about this, is that I've been doing that from day one. And what happened with the fasting, getting into that lifestyle, get into the world that I created for myself, right? Call it a European, Mediterranean fasting lifestyle that I created for myself, all natural foods and all that, and which built up to 1 meal a day and sometimes 2 meals a day. But the latest on average I eat is 7 p.m. And if I have my 1 meal a day, which I do 6 days a week on average, right? 5 days a week, that eating window is between 5 and 7, maybe 4 and 7, but that's my eating window, the max of that period I'm going to go in there. So when I look at how I used to live, right, the processed food world, eating at all times, at any time, whenever, right, and then the obesity, I was obese, right, by scale, by statistics, and by data, I was obese. And when I look at the obesity and I look at the way I used to eat and the way I used to live, and that shift that I did, the complete about face 180, right? And then right away I started also doing my sleep pattern. I started monitoring myself. I was monitoring my sleep pattern. I started paying attention to it because I wanted to get 8 hours because of the circadian rhythm and that circle, that cycle. I wanted to make sure that just like the earth, you don't want it to go off its axle, right? So I wanted to make sure that I follow the same pattern. So just like my fasting, my sleep, I started doing the exact same thing. I've been doing that from June 3rd, 2019. What I found out with this research was really interesting. When you talk about quality and quantity, right? The quantity of sleep is what's important. You know those individuals, because I know those individuals, they can lay in bed 14 hours a day, 16 hours a day, 20 hours a day. They are the most unhealthy looking individuals that I know. So they're sleeping all the time, just like a cat, right? Just like a cat and a dog. Dogs sleep a lot too. So they sleep all the time, but they're filled with opiates. They medically, they know where they're at. They know they got to pivot. And some people sometimes live a certain age and like, well, I'm at this age now. No, that's your optics of that age, but that's not the reality of that age. Because the reality of that age, you can be fit and strong right to the end, right? So that's where that quantity right? When I look at sleep and quantity, I know individuals, like I just mentioned, that could sleep all day, and they do, right? And they're always, they stay up late at night because they can't sleep during the day, but they sleep on the couch and that kind of stuff, right? And then their sleep pattern is completely off. Remember that, going back to that axle, right? I made sure that axle always followed through. That quantity of sleep, that's what I focused on since June 3rd, 2019, that I'm laying horizontally somewhere for 8 hours, right? That's what I want to be. And my mind, and because of the way I eat, I know this. And because I cut out the sugars and I cut out the process, and I don't eat like the way I used to do, my wife will tell you. My wife will tell you right here, like if I want to look at it anecdotally, right? I've been monitoring my sleep. And I rarely hit 8 hours. Rarely hit 8 hours, right? Between 6, 7, 7.5 hours, right? That's what I'm hitting. But my wife will tell you anecdotally that I'm, right? I used to be she used to call it the fish out of a frying pan, right? She goes, you're always tossing and turning. I could hear you breathing. I could hear you snoring. I could hear you like stopping breathing, right? And making these sounds. And she used to wake me up and all these things, right? Gone, right? She basically says, you're sleeping. You're sleeping. Like I sleep it and I feel that way. So whether I get a 6.5 or a 7.5 hours, and I try to aim for the 8, and I can't say I never get the 8. I get on the occasional Sundays, right? Sunday, I'll tell my family, please don't make any noise if I can sleep until like 7. If I go to bed, I try to get the 8 hours in, right? Because you just naturally get up. And that's the thing about fasting, and people that follow the lifestyle properly, they will tell you how they naturally get up. It's like like the sun. You fall in your axle, right? You just like the sun, you just get up, right? It's not a choice. And that's what happens. So that 8 hours horizontally, I make sure of that. And so the quality in food made a hell of a difference for me. Nutrient dense, I know that. I know that why I'm losing body fat, because I'm getting my quality of sleep every single night for the maintaining that axle, and that quality in food, your nutrient dense and so forth, real food, right? As much as local as possible, as much as I grow as possible, and or as much frozen fruits, for example, and all these kinds of real food, right? I do this every day, consistent. Every day I do this. Here's what's freaky about the differences in obesity. The people that are sleep deprived, the people that don't take care of their sleep, the people that go off the axle all the time for their sleep, my previous life, right? The difference in obesity is mind-boggling. All the studies and the data and the research and what they know tangible, right? It's like huge numbers in different categories. Huge numbers in testosterone drops in men, that kind of stuff. Huge differences, those that don't have quality of sleep. Diabetes comparison. If you don't have quality of sleep, you're like you're a diabetic. You get into that insulin body. Hence the obesity. Remember the insulin body that I was in, right? This little pouch that's still there. Sign right there of an insulin body. It's going with autophagy, that kind of stuff, naturally, like this skin wrapping, right? But that diabetic comparison, because of lack of sleep, that was me. That makes sense now. Children, building patterns. What you're doing in your household, your environment, you're going to affect your children's adulthood, which means obesity, right? If you don't structure them on that window that they need to be horizontal and sleeping properly with quality sleep, and do this day in, day out, right? Every day, every night. The quality of sleep, if you teach them a bad pattern, they will take that into their adulthood, and the studies and the data have proven that. And again, tying into obesity, overweight, unhealthiness, opiates use, etc., right? And then thyroid, complete changes in your thyroid. Look, I suffer from thyroid. Like, it goes on and on. Like, if you look at the numbers, it is mind-boggling. So this is why when I was listening to that, right, that light bulb moment, it was like this is what my commonality. This is what I've been doing, and the communication that I share with people. I share that in my communication. One of them is about sleep, and I've been doing that from the moment I've been doing it. I've been sharing it with people for a long time, but I talk about that in there because of that, right? But now when I was listening to those studies and those data and those research and backed by like reputable government sanctioned type things, very interesting. So that is why I know that why I'm losing so much body fat and why I'm shredding and the abs are coming out compared to those that I know are following a lifestyle, they're fasting a lifestyle, etc., etc. But I'll guarantee you, if I was to ask them, how's your sleep? How are you following your sleep? Have you made that part of your axle? Have you made that part of your daily routine, your 8 hours? And I'll guarantee you, most of them will say, no, I didn't. You got to add that. You got to add that quality of sleep, right? Not quantity, quality of sleep to your regimen, and that is why you're going to lose body fat. That's how you're going to shred, and that's your circadian rhythm. GuyPublicFigure, EFA186.